Hello and welcome. Thank you for logging into today's webinar, Accessibility Compliance, 7 Easy Tips to Getting Your Web Content Accessible. Let's start off by meeting your speaking panel for today. I'm pleased to welcome Kim Chatterjee, one of Stamford Interactive's Senior User Experience Consultants and Web Accessibility Subject Matter Experts. Stamford Interactive is a user experience consulting firm and one of elcom's partners. Kim will tell you a little bit more about Stamford Interactive later on in this presentation. Also on the panel we have Anthony Milner, elcom's Product Director. For those of you who have sat in on one of elcom's webinars before, you'll know what a wonderful and enlightening presenter he is. He has worked on and is currently working on a number of accessibility projects with clients and partners. And he'll be sharing some of his experiences in the technology overview section of today's webinar. And for those of you who missed my name earlier, my name is Lisa Yoon. I'm elcom's Marketing Manager, and I'll be acting as today's moderator. You'll no doubt have some questions during the course of the webinar. You'll see the following question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to type out your question here. I'll collect these questions during the course of the event, and we'll answer them during the Q&A session at the end. You can also join in the conversation using the Twitter hashtag A11YTips and follow us at elcomCMS, or you can follow Stamford Interactive at StamfordUX. For regular updates and invites to other webinars, please like or follow our Facebook or LinkedIn pages. For those who don't know, A11Y is a common abbreviation for accessibility. The 11 stands for the number of letters emitted. Just some trivia for you. Okay, let's start off with some quick introductions as to who elcom and Stamford are. I'm going to tell you a little bit about elcom, and then I'm going to hand over to Kim, who will tell you a little bit more about Stamford. elcom is a global enterprise web content management software provider. We have over 15 years of experience in helping mid to enterprise-sized organizations with achieving their online business objectives. We were first established in Sydney, and over the past few years we've rapidly expanded and now have offices in New York and San Francisco in the United States. Our global business operations is also supported by a well-established partner network. elcomCMS, which you will hear a little bit about today, is our core product. Through elcomCMS, we supply organizations with numerous technology solutions to support their digital strategies. Whether you're looking for a website, intranet, portal, mobile site, social site, training, e-commerce, online marketing, or any combination or configuration of the above, we can help you. Clients who have benefited from using elcomCMS include the likes of Hyundai, Austrade, Origin LPG, Wine Selectors, the Audit Office of New South Wales, Target, and more. Okay, so hopefully that gives you enough information about who we are and what we do. If you have any questions, you can visit our website or type in your question in the question box, or just email us afterwards. Okay, without further ado, I'll hand over to Kim, who will tell us a little bit more about Stamford.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim. I'm from Stamford, and I just wanted to introduce you to our people. So we are incredibly friendly. I cannot emphasize how friendly we are. We are a UX or user experience agency across Australia. We love finding out how people do things. So we investigate how people do the tasks that they do, what enables them. We love learning how people do things differently from the way we normally expect. And that's how we really got into the world of accessibility, because it was just pretty cool finding out all this stuff. So we put the user at the center of our design processes. We do a lot of lurking, so stalking people, finding out, looking over their shoulders and asking tons of questions. We may not have all the answers, but we have a lot of questions. And we aim to design useful, engaging, and delightful user experience solutions, because if we love good design, and we love to deliver that as well. So that's us.
Thanks, Kim. So before we kick off, we just want to run through some of the things that we're going to cover today. Kim's going to give us a quick recap about accessibility and what it is. And then we're going to review accessibility issues and how they affect user experience. Then we're going to launch into the main part of the webinar today and take a look at the 7 easy tips that Kim has put together. Then Anthony is going to walk us through a technology demonstration and how technology can aid you and assist you in your journey in meeting accessibility compliance. Then we're going to provide you with some tools and resources that you can take home and use. And then we're going to recap and summarize everything that we've learned and gone over today. Again, during the course of this whole event, feel free to type out your questions in the control panel. Fantastic. So let's start off with a quick poll so that we can gauge where everyone is on your accessibility journey. So let me just launch this first. Okay. Where are you on the accessibility journey? You're just starting out, learning and doing some research. You've got a strategy and you just need to implement it. You're currently implementing your strategy, or you're partially compliant, or you're fully compliant. So take a few moments to see which one is most relevant to you, and I'll share the results so we can see where everyone is. Okay, give you a couple more seconds. Okay, great. I'm going to close the poll now and share the results. Okay, hopefully you can see the results. Give it a second. Okay, it's popped up. So we've got 48%, almost half of you, just starting out and learning and starting out on your journey, learning and researching about accessibility. 5% have got a strategy and you're implementing it. 20% of you are currently implementing your strategy. 18% of you, I think that's yellow, can't really see it. 18% of you are partially compliant, and 9% of you, fantastic job, the 9% of you, are fully compliant. So that's really excellent. Kim, do you have any feedback? Is that what you...
That is awesome. I'm just really happy to see that.
Great. Okay, so now that you know you've got some people in the same group as you, we can begin. So I'm going to hide this, and hopefully you can see the presentation again. And I'm going to hand over to, I'm going to stop talking now and hand over to Kim.
Thanks, Alicia. Okay, so once again, I'm Kim. Your main challenge today is to slow me down. So my main request for you is that if any time I start to speak incredibly fast like this, just put a comment in there, and Alicia or Anthony will hit me on the back of the head.
Yeah.
And so this is direct feedback we're talking about, which is, I love this day and age.
Perfect.
So we're going to be talking about accessibility compliance, and I wanted to talk about specifically web content and what that actually means. So there's lots of things to consider with accessibility. There's the coding, there's the content production, there are different assistive technologies and the user experience. And we're focusing really on the production side of things. So hopefully this is of use to you. For those of you who are already compliant, this is fantastic. This is affirmation of what you're already doing. And what I really want to be able to achieve today is to show you why it's really important from a user experience point of view and give you things that you can go back to your desk and keep doing. So I was given a challenge to try to sum it up in 60 seconds. I'm going to fail miserably, but in 60 seconds, here it is. We have the deadline for those of us who are working in government. We have a deadline of end of this year to implement the first stage of the National Transition Strategy. We have a level of compliance that we need to get to. We have the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines that we call WCAG. That is the image to the left. That scrolls down for at least 5 kilometers, depending on how well you're reading it. We also have a lot of legal background. So the Disability Discrimination Act, the UN Convention, Equal Employment Opportunities, OH&S, Freedom of Information, All of this is fantastic stuff that actually enables us to do this kind of work. And if you need the scare tactics, then we also have a lot of the legal precedents of court cases that have actually set the precedent to say this is really important. The really cool thing about having this as a background for what we're doing is because we need to understand that any service that we provide, whether it is online, it is the equivalent in terms of equal access to what we used to think about as the in-store experience. You would not discriminate against anybody if they came and tried to get a service from you in person or in store. So all places tend to already try to provide a level of service for that. That needs to be applied to the web, and we'll try to help you understand a bit of how to get through that. But first of all, I want to talk about the first misconception that a lot of people associate with accessibility. They think it really is about disability, and it applies to a small percentage of people or users or people on the web. And I just want to emphasize that it's not just about wheelchair ramps and accessible toilets, although I do have examples of that in this slide. It is about universality, and what I want to show you are examples of what access really is. So I'll give you a minute to figure out what is wrong with this picture. And by now you've figured it out. This is what access is all about. Can you get to something? So the way they've implemented this, they've got the poster, they've got a format that has worked 1,000 times. Everyone knows exactly what to do with that. Can't get to it. So that's what access is in a nutshell. And we'll talk about how that applies to the online content, but this always cracks people up. So hopefully you're chuckling somewhere. I will imagine that you are chuckling, and I will chuckle with you. So a lot of people then have good intentions, but they have poor experience. Prepare for my wheelchair ramp example. Coming up, ta-da! Okay, so they knew that they had to put in an accessible ramp up, and whether it was safe or not, or even climbable. So the implementation is almost there. Good intentions. Okay, one more example, this time of an accessible toilet. I did promise you that it would come up. Coming up, okay. Have a look. In case your display isn't showing it properly, there is Braille underneath the sign where it says door locked when lit. And in Braille, it says door locked when lit. Hopefully you're understanding the irony of that situation. So yes, they are compliant, but have they really thought about the user experience? Sometimes you might have an accessible solution already there. My colleague at Stamford, Ruth, took this picture as an example of how the sign in itself points to what should be disabled access, and it points to the stairs. So this would immediately piss off anybody who was looking for the disabled access, which happens to be underneath the stairs. But here, the sign in itself is enough to put people off. So this is sort of what we're talking about in terms of user experience when it comes to accessibility. But I do have a couple of good examples. Now we're talking inclusive design. And what we mean by inclusive design is making sure that something works for as many people as possible. So I've got a couple of examples that I want to share you. So this is how we like to start the conversation about accessibility. It gets people on board. It gets people to a common understanding about the fact that someone actually has to experience something that we've put in front of them. So the stairs in the picture in the background have incorporated a ramp in a zigzag pattern. And that helps anybody who has wheels. So your shopping trolley, your pram, your suitcase, your skateboard, your bicycle, and it still accommodates people who want to run up the stairs because they're crazy at lunchtime and they want to do this thing called exercise. So it caters for all types of access requirements. And yes, you know, your wheelchair can go down there, but all of a sudden it's opened it up for a lot of different types of people with wheels. The signal on the right, where with the when you're crossing the street, incorporates quite a lot of things that we have now come to take for granted. You hear the sound of the beeping, so you know that that's when to cross the street. But if you've got your music plugged in or you can't hear the sound, then you've still got the sign of the green man telling you when to walk, or the signal embedded within the device itself. These are things that help everybody cross the road properly. And for a colleague of mine, Ruth, again, I'm mentioning her twice now because she's just as geeky as I am about this stuff, She went to the U.S. recently and just waited patiently at the light, waiting for that sound, not realizing that they didn't implement that. So that has affected her behavior, and we're all dependent to it in some way. That's inclusive. And if anyone is familiar with the Kindle and the fact that the Kindle is awesome because it actually has embedded functionality of making your font size that big, for those of us who don't need font that big, that's fine, that's just an extra feature. But for someone who needs magnification at that scale, this is really empowering because the device has already thought about them, and it doesn't make them bring out their magnifying lens or some other device that points out to everyone around them, hey, this person needs something extra. If they are included as part of the user base of that tool. So this is why we love accessibility and we love inclusive design. So I want to talk to you a bit more about the different types of issues of how people might experience your content online and basically how they might be affected. So bringing accessibility from the checklist point of view to the human point of view. So I want to introduce you to a couple of personas that we've created once they load up. One of the biggest challenges with communicating accessibility is to remind people that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. What might be accessible for Ron might be completely different for Raj because they have different access needs. And believe it or not, you guys actually have access requirements that you may not have actually realized or verbalized in different ways. So we always try to bring it back to what's the experience like for Ron, who might have had a stroke and so he has limited mobility and you're making him click around a lot using a mouse. Or what about Mark on the top right? And Mark is hearing impaired, but he has a very active business and he has to run around a lot as a plumber, and he uses his iPad and he gets instant messaging that way, and that's great for his business. Or what about May down in the middle, who is just learning English and is trying to read a lot, and she's probably a professor back in her home country, and she really wants to be able to absorb new information in a different format. We've made Raj to be a bar owner, I think, can't remember, but he's colorblind, and so how does he coordinate his clothes, and how does he interpret information that is first represented to him only in color? So you can see how we start to put user stories behind the experience. So when we look at something and say, is this accessible, we look at it from the person's point of view. Well, what's it like for Jessica at the top? She's a student. She's very active online. She's constantly chatting to someone across an ocean somewhere. She's blind. She uses a couple of tools, but she has access to all this content. What doesn't work for her? And let's try to find that out and make it better for her. And in case you're wondering about Robin in the corner, she's obviously a teacher. She's retiring. She's got RSI. She's got migraines because of the lighting and her eyesight deteriorating. So everyone has different requirements in terms of how they consume content. And no one's hit me at the back of the head yet, which means that I'm not going too fast. That's
all good.
Excellent. All right, that's the good stuff. What are we doing? Oh, yes. Apologies. We've got a bit of a lag happening here. So to summarize what equivalence might actually be. So there's a lot more to it than this, but for the 30-minute version, we want you to consider what the language experience is going to be like. And therefore, we need to consider someone with a language experience needs simple language to be able to understand what you're talking about, and lots of imagery to be able to help them communicate or convey tone, attitude, environment. People with mobility constraints need to be able to use the keyboard, and they might be using speech software so they can dictate, which is also based on keyboard functionality. People with hearing impairments or if they're deaf require text equivalent of anything that is audio so that they have that equivalent. They also benefit from simple language and just very clear and concise language as well. Sign language as well if you're able to provide that. And people with vision, whether that is low vision or no vision, people with low vision benefit from clear legibility, good contrast, color, magnification, images. If they can't see the images, are the images described? If you've got video in there, are the videos narrated? Have you got headings and code for screen readers, and it kind of goes on. And the experience is different for different people. So that's why we always try to bring it back to who your users are, what their experiences are. And there is tons more out there because everyone's experience, just as all of you use computers and you use content and you use things in different ways, it is all about a varied and personalized but consumable experience. So, 7 easy tips for getting your web content accessible. We wanted to focus on web content because we know that there is a deadline that everyone might be freaking out about. December 2012 is when a lot of government departments have to get your content to the base level of compliance with WCAG. But it's easy to sort of scramble to make that happen. I'm not sorry, did I say easy? No, you can make that happen, but you have to plan for what happens next. So what happens in January? Any new content that gets published online still has to be compliant, and this means that we would like to bring you on that journey to see that it's actually easy, and a lot of it is small changes to the way you're doing things. And if you're already doing things, that's fantastic. Keep doing it and appreciate why it has to be done in the first place. So the first tip, headings are there for a reason. This is a fairly obvious one for those of you already using headings, but I've got a picture for you. So this is a BBC site, fantastic source of news. I'm just going to change the image. So as you can see, the headings are very distinct. That's what grabs people's attention. So people who can see the content already know that headings have meaning. That's the short summary. It's the attention grabber. Someone who is not able to see the screen, such as a person who is vision impaired, who might be using a screen reader, will also need to navigate by the headings. And so I've just changed the screen here a little bit. You'll see the H tags shown up on the page. And all of a sudden, it becomes important that that is actually a heading, because someone using a screen reader can just look at anything from a heading point of view. And based on the headings, they'll know what to read, or they'll see what interests them. If that were not marked up as a heading, say the news section were actually just Arial size 24, bold, in blue, that won't get picked up at all, and therefore that information will just be text that you hope someone will discover. So it helps with chunking, it helps with visually attracting content, people's line of sight, and also helps people prioritize if they're listening to this in a long string of options for them to read. So if you're working in Microsoft Word or whatever text editor that you're working on, it's important to get this right from the source. So even in the documents that you're preparing, what we'd like to point out to you is that this particular section is fairly important. A lot of people have ignored that or blurred over that or never even realized it's there. That exists for a reason. If you get the heading structured the right way in your document, that gets translated across as soon as you dump that into your WYSIWYG editor, or at least we hope it does. You want to make sure it does. So things to do. Use headings in the first place. So see, I told you it was easy. Use the correct hierarchy. So H2 and then H3 and then H4. And if you go straight from H2 to H4, someone might tell you that you're doing it wrong. And make sure that the headings visually stand out so that it does look separate to the body text so that people recognize when they see it, it actually is a heading. A lot of people benefit from this. All right, moving on to the next tip. If you have any questions, by the way, just put them through and we'll get to them when we can. Okay, the second one is just about links. Now, links are incredibly important. They are the basis of the web. That's how you get to more content. So write links that can stand alone. And this is sort of what we mean when we say they don't stand alone. So a site that says read more, read more, read more. So a lot of people already know about this. It's not that easy to implement, actually, because sometimes you really just want them to read more. But the reason why it's important is because we often refer to the screen reader experience because that tends to have the most hurdles for them to get through. If they're listening to a list of just all the links, and all they're hearing is read more, read more, read more, they have no basis for making a selection. So provide them with more options. Potentially the heading could be the link as well. Therefore, they could ignore the read more and use the headings as their links. Or make it a bit more succinct, or not succinct, a bit more elaborate, opposite of succinct, actually. Read more about something. Tell them what it actually is going to be about. I have another example coming up about using the wording in your links, because this is what someone's going to be able to hear if they're going to listen to it through a screen reader. But even looking at this, you see two links, an application form and via this form. I'm thinking it's the same thing, but they're not. One is a PDF, one is an online form. There's two separate things. You kind of want to warn your users about the difference. So you can't use the same thing to refer to two very different things. So a couple of things to do. Clearly describe the content or the function. If it's going to go somewhere, let them know. So you often see stylings of or warning people that it's going to go to an external site. Use meaningful words. And what we mean by front load is you tell people up front what the action is going to be rather than being long-winded. Keep them concise but relevant, and warn people when it's going to be a document that is going to be heavy to download so that they have the choice to commit to that click. A lot of times people don't realize, they click on something and they might not even realize that something's already downloading in the background. So don't use the same link text for different links. Avoid using the entire URL as a link, and avoid use the click here or read more. Although there are caveats around this, and we can talk to you a bit more about that later on, but we just want to plant these in your head to make sure that you're thinking about them. All right. So the third one, writing content that makes sense. This isn't actually as simple as it sounds. I do apologize. I did say that it was going to be easy, but making content simple, anyone who's written content knows that it's not that easy. The reason is because quite a lot of your online readers in Australia actually benefit from clear content. So they may have very poor skills across one of the 5 skills of literacy. That could be literacy or numeracy, for instance. So they benefit from clear, simple language. A lot of us actually are also from non-English speaking background. So that's a huge percentage of people who might be trying to access content, and they might benefit from information that you're trying to provide to them. If you also consider any consumers of your content who are accessing it from overseas, then what's their experience going to be like as well? So simple is good. There are ways for you to do this. So if you're preparing your content in something like Microsoft Word, you can check the reading ease. So the Flesh reading ease, you can actually get this done through readability statistics. You can look up how to do that, and you can aim for a good score of 70 onwards. You know, that means that you're using short sentences, you're being clear. The higher, the better. Simple and plain language, be legible, and this actually helps for people who are just trying to read it in the first place, because you don't want them to have to magnify if they don't need to. So be nice, start big. And use tables to present data. Rather than being incredibly text-heavy, tables can really chunk up content and make sure they're marked up correctly. And Anthony's got a couple of tips for you for how you do that. Okay. The next one is describe what the images are or what they mean. And this, so I've just got an example here of alt text. So alt text, and yes, I did mention boobies in a webinar. It is official. Alt text is important because this is what describes an image in the first place. And for those of you wondering what on earth I was going to show you in the first place when it came to boobies, this was from a bird watching site. So yes, they are a very nice pair of boobies. But if there was no alt text, then this would just not convey any information whatsoever, unless you were to describe that in the body text around the image. If the image was important for someone to understand or at least get a feel for the site, the experience for someone who couldn't see the image because it didn't load, if they were from a remote area with very slow internet connection, or if they're using a screen reader, the screen reader would come across the image and just say image. And that's even more frustrating than not knowing that there was an image in the first place. So always put an alt text in there. This also applies to some more complex images. So when you put content like this, images are fantastic in terms of conveying a lot of complex information, so don't be scared of them. But think about how you're going to describe them to people who might need that description, or how that might be conveyed to the rest of your site. Because if you're going to provide a lot of information about this particular image for screen readers, everybody else might benefit from that too. So that might actually be a really good piece of text to put in your body text so that everybody understands what you're talking about. Again, just pointing out how you can do this in Microsoft Word. Any image that you put in can have alt text already included in there, and the place to put the text, keep it short and sweet, is in the description field down there. Ignore the title bit; doesn't do anything. So just this section here is where you can put the description of what is the equivalent of the car. Sorry, of the image. So things to do. Hope I'm not going too fast here. Add alt tag for each image. Where the checkers, when they're checking for accessibility, will pick you up on it, is they don't find the alt tag. So make sure that everything has an alt tag. If it's a logo, it's important information to convey, so make sure the word logo is in there. Use short phrases. If it's going to be an essay that you're whacking in there, that's probably important information for everybody else. And people who don't use screen readers will not benefit from alt text. So that's kind of reverse discrimination there, so stop it. So, okay, if the image is decoration only, and the way to think about this is, if you don't see the image, have you lost any information? If the answer is no, then it is decoration. So you can leave the alt tag blank, but it still needs an alt tag. And what that does for a screen reader is, if the screen reader comes across the image, it says, oh, it's been left blank. Okay, I can skip over it. It's noise. And they can at least reduce a lot of the noise that someone has to experience. And as I mentioned, if you're going to put an essay in there, use the alt tag to point the user to the longer description elsewhere. So whether it's a different page or the body text that follows to say longer description is coming up. What we don't want you to put into the alt tag is the file name of the image. Sometimes this is done by default, so make sure you double check that it's not saying greencard.jpg. Don't put the format in there, it's unnecessary, and words like graphic or click or photo are redundant as well, because the reason is because the screen reader will identify it as a file type anyway, so it will say an image or it will say a graphic, so you're doubling up. The only exception for this is if you're describing a museum collection where it's important to recognize that an image is an actual, an image type as opposed to something else. All right. So number 5, text in images is not always okay. It's actually sometimes very rarely okay. And I just want to show you a picture. Brace yourself. It's going to be very yellow, very, very yellow. Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. I love JB Hi-Fi. Absolutely adore this site. Well, not the site. Sorry, the in-store experience, because they have lots of deals. So yes, adore them. Notice how they have a lot of text, and all of these actually are images. So let me show you what it's like if I turn the images off. Even more yellow coming right up. Anytime now. Ta-da! So what you get is the link to the description of where it's actually going to go. So it does still take you to that page, and it shows you what it's going to be. But notice that all the sale information, which was the actual benefit of what was embedded in the picture, didn't come through. So that's where text and images needs to be considered in terms of what you're actually putting there and what's the equivalent experience. This is also why it's really important to try to avoid in the first place, or at least have backups for it. So a couple of examples here really are for people who need magnification. So if you've got the text as part of the picture, you can see in the bottom, it gets pixelated and it gets pretty wonky, and it's not as easy to read or make sense of. And captures I've put in there. Captures are just evil, so if you reconsider if you really need them in the first place, or try to find some nice alternatives to them. There's a fair bit of research happening in this space, but captures can really prevent people from continuing on in a process. And if you're locking them out from continuing with a very important transaction, or finding out more information, or purchasing something, or signing in, because they're not able to get through the text in the image, you might have to reconsider what you're really trying to get them to do. Okay, so number 6, offer a plan B for your media. So media is a really, really good way of conveying a lot of information to people. People tend to absorb content in videos or podcasts or audio because that's the content that they need. And it could be a preference. But then you have to think about what the experience is like for someone who might not be able to have the sound activated or they can't hear the audio. So I tend to turn my sound off quite a lot because I don't want to disturb people around me, and I keep forgetting to bring my speakers. Or I could be just watching a video while I'm on a plane, and I really benefit from having captions on there. So captions are really critical for people who want that experience. They don't want to be excluded from the content just because they don't have their sound or they actually have no access to sound. So captions are really important. So you need to. Oh no! I talked more than 30 minutes. Wow.
Got a timer on.
I had timed myself and I failed miserably. Keeping on. So captions, yes, very important. Transcripts, also very important. So TED here, not the person but the website, provide a lot of video content because that's what their talks are about, but they also provide, as you can see below the video, the text transcript of it so that people can consume the content in a different way. So I tend to read faster than these guys talk, and so I can get through a lot more content that way. So that can help a lot of people. And who hasn't enjoyed a good foreign film with subtitles? So here, just to make the point across, I've got a French film and I've subtitled it with the Spanish version. So yes, people really benefit from content that way. It's very horizon enriching. So. And sign language is another thing to consider as well. So this is an example where a video has embedded captions as well as sign language. So these are the things you need to start thinking about if you're going to be adding this content online as well. So a couple of things to remember. If you're going to be embedding video or media of any kind, think of the transcript or the text version because you can do a lot with that. Based on the transcript, you can put the captions in. So you can also get subtitles in there if that is a requirement for you guys. And audio descriptions, which is the narrated version of anything that is visual. So that can help people who have vision impairments. And my final tip is all those documents that you're about to upload. So we have lots of conversations about Word documents or PDFs and what do you do with those. Get it right from the start. So if you're going to be working in Word, Word 2010 has a built-in accessibility checker, which is fabulous. So I've just got a screenshot here of where to find it. So it's in this part of Word. You can just run that, and you then get this view within your working document. And it'll pick up, as you're working through the document, where you might have issues. So on the right, you get the inspection results. You can make sure that your content is correctly structured so that you can then upload that or you can then translate that into your online content. So both ways you can be quite safe. So that's the section you need to, we suggest constantly having that up online as well. Done. Okay, well, not done, but that was 7. All right, Anthony?
That was, thank you, Kim. That was awesome. Thank you very much for that very informative 7 tips. I'm going to jump in and show you a technology demonstration. It's really a walkthrough of article creation on the elcomCMS, which offers a unique accessibility check as you type, in addition to the Microsoft Word check that Kim just referred to. So the tool online will actually check for proper structure, text sizing, and make sure of insertion of things like alt text. It also checks table accessibility on a cell-by-cell level and provides a table accessibility wizard for the user to directly create tables with the required accessibility markup. So let's take a closer look. And to do this, I'm going to be doing a live demonstration. I'm just going to switch monitors so you can take a look at what I'm seeing. Okay, and let's open up this Word document. I've just removed the image because I'd like to pop that back in a moment, so hopefully you can all see the screen. So it is common that content creation for the web starts in Microsoft Word. So I've prepared this content which you can see on your screen, which is currently not formatted, and I'm going to leave it unformatted for the purpose of this demo. You can see here I've got some paragraphs. I'll remove that heading of priority 1. I've got a table. I also have some additional subheadings, which I'll actually remove the subheading, formatting, and some unordered lists. I will go ahead now and actually add an image to the content. I've prepared an image which is sitting on my desktop, which is a desert panorama. Now, alt text can be added at this point, but I'm not going to do that. Now, using the LCMS Word plugin, this content can be published directly to the elcomCMS. So I click up here on the tab. First thing I should do actually is save my document locally. And once I've saved locally, I can go ahead and click the Publish button, and you'll see that the elcomCMS Word plugin web service authenticates me using Active Directory and then presents me the folders of the site for which I have access and publishing rights to. So I'm going to select the demonstration folder, and it grabs the file name and pops that in as the page title for me. I can also go ahead and just add a brief description. And I'm just going to keep monitoring your screen refreshes to make sure that you're catching up with what I'm doing. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead now and publish the article. And the elcom web service will grab that article, publish it up to my elcomCMS website, and then load the page for me. So you're seeing the uploading and the transfer. And in a moment, you'll see the browser window open and display the lovely content. Now, it is using the built-in template, so it's automatically styled my H1 heading, but the rest of the document isn't really styled. I have no alt text. I have no subheadings. So there's a bunch of things that I've done here which create problems for someone. So if I go ahead and click the Edit button, this will allow me to drop into the content and edit this page. Now I'm going to flick over to our eFox editor. We have a couple of flavors of editors in the elcomCMS. It is the eFox editor which provides the accessibility checking as you type function. So now that in a moment this will be loaded up into your screens, I'll just wait for that to load up. Okay, so you should see that in one moment on your screens. Okay, there we go. So it presents to you the text editor from with. Okay, so you should be seeing the image as well. Now, using the accessibility as you type is as easy as using a typical spell checker. So you can easily enable or disable this feature from the toolbar or the menu. So you can see here I've got a button here, an option here on the drop-down menu, and I've also got a button over here on the toolbar. So I'm going to enable that, and what it's going to do now is run through the document and display a little icon next to any of the items where accessibility compliance is either showing an error or a warning. So you can mouse over that icon and get a brief description of the error. So you can see here my table has a few issues. Now, for a more comprehensive assessment, an accessibility report, and this provides you with a detailed analysis of the accessibility error. The author can specify which guidelines to apply when creating this report. So, publishing for part of the world, you might choose different environment. In the US, Section 508. Here in Australia, we're targeting Priority 2. So I'll enable the Section 508 and WCAG Priority 1 warnings. The checklist is automatically updated and expands or contracts in its scope. Now, for each accessibility identified, the report shows a brief description of the action required for the author to solve the error. The author wishes to read the fine detail of the guideline and can also click which will attach guideline text on the web. This gives you an idea of how the accessibility will work. What I now is part of this article. I actually go ahead and trash this content using the trash icon at the top of the screen. And I'll jump back into Word. And this time, let's go ahead and actually apply appropriate styles and formatting. So I'll bold the name of the author. Over here, I'll actually go in and format the picture and add some alt text. Okay, so there's our alt text that's been added to the image. Scrolling down on the Priority 1 checkpoint, I'll use the built-in style and formatting that Word provides using the heading 2, which will be translated into an H2 when it reaches the website. If I go ahead and do inline formatting that's not in accordance with the styles and formatting, that will be removed on import or upload. I'll also set an H2 on another subheading. And now that this has been corrected, we can go ahead and publish this back to the website. So I'll just go ahead and say this is a separate version. Hit that publish button again, target the demo folder, give this a brief description. This time it's called my accessible article. Opt for format to be cleaned, hit the publish button, and again, this will be transferred up to the website. Okay, so you should be seeing it on your screens now. You can now see that the formatting has been transferred. I now have the correct formatting for the author's name. We also have alt text on the image, which you'll see in a minute as we jump into the content. You can see that the formatting is applied appropriately for headings as well, bullet lists, and the table. So let's jump in and run that checker one more time. Okay, so here we are at the content, turning on that checker. You can now see if we run the accessibility report, you know, that the warnings are far fewer. So there are obviously some manual checks here. These are kind of things that the computer check, and it's just advising you to take a look at. But you can see that the only issue that it's found now with our content is check the use of headings. Now it's noticed that I have a heading 2 without a heading 1, which is valid, but that's actually something which is catered for in my template. So I can go ahead and publish this content and be confident that it has passed my, my accessibility checks. So you can see that the heading 1 was baked into the template, and heading 2 commences at a lower level. Now this method was for creating content via Microsoft Word, but obviously if we create a new piece of content on the CMS, directly in the CMS, similar rules are applied. So if I click the Add Article button and just create some new content, and I'll go ahead and target the same folder, and this time I'll select a specific template. And I'll go ahead and create that. And you can see my new page instantly being created. I can now drop into the editor. You can set your default to your preferred editor. And when that editor loads, we can have it defaulted to ensure that accessibility checking as you type is enabled. And as I start to add content such as tables, you can see instantly that the warnings appear. Adding an image. If there's no alt text on this image, there actually happens to be alt text on this image, which is obviously good, but there shouldn't be. So if there was actually no alt text on this image, then you'll see the checker will automatically throw a warning telling me that I'm in breach of the various guidelines. Okay, so in addition to accessibility checking, it's also important to point out that the actual editing interface itself is also accessible. Icons, shortcut keys, and context-sensitive right-click menus provide alternative access to features that are also found on the drop-down menus. So case studies have shown that web authors using publishing tools such as this have been able to reduce compliance errors identified post-publication by more than 90%. So this is really the place to catch the issues first up, and also an important tool, as Kim mentioned, for post-December 2012. You know, you don't just have to be compliant on 1st of January, but you need to make sure that your teams can easily continue to be compliant, and using tools such as this hopefully go a long way to ensuring that your content stays accessible. So that's it from me and the demo. I hope the screen refreshers were quick enough to actually make sense via the webinar. I hope that it's been useful for you. And now I'm going to hand back to Kim.
Okay. Thanks very much, Anthony. The next section that we want to share with you guys are just a whole bunch of tools and resources that you can, if you're not already using these, could be a good reminder, of all the resources that you can just download from the internet, and you can install yourselves. Most of these are for free. All right, so I'm not putting the links in here, mainly because Google search will find these for you. The checker comes in 2010. Vision Illustrator Toolbar is a fantastic toolbar that you can use to do a couple of checks. The Wave toolbar as well. In order to check your color contrast when you're doing design, use a color contrastizer, but this is only one of many. But we tend to use this and check your color contrast as well as tables, and the developer toolbar that you can run across a whole bunch of browsers. And you can also check your PDFs with this free accessibility checker, although Acrobatics is still the best one to use. And NVDA, for those of you who don't know this is going to trust me that the developers are creating, have created a screen reader that is free, and it is fantastic. So we absolutely love these guys. And they're donations-based, so go support them. And so those are a whole bunch of those tools. On the Stanford site, we also have the WCAG map. It's an easy reference for you guys to use because WCAG can be a quite long piece of text to read. So this way, this sort of helps, get it into bite-sized chunks. And if you want to look more into video or some of the more complex stuff, we've taken the WCAG context for video and put that into a checklist for you guys so that you can look at pre-production alternative content, what to worry about with a video player, because that spans quite a lot of the guidelines as well. So these are freely available on our site. Just check out the resources section. So to summarize everything that we've been talking about, yes, the deadline is this year, but we want to make this a behavior change for everybody. It can be a whole bunch of simple things, and some of them are more complex things. There are a couple of questions that have filtered through that we can get to. But here's, in a nutshell, when you're creating content, just remember these things. Make sure that your headings are correctly structured. There was a question in there, I think, from all of you, if I can refer to that, about headings and how they're actually used. We're still investigating how this does work and how it affects people. But this is something that the checkers are probably going to find in the tab and for you as well. But it is something that we are looking a bit more into how people are affected by. But keep doing it anyway in time. Links need to be well written. A whole bunch of WCAG guidelines. The links need to make sense on their own, and they need to indicate their purpose. So that's where the language in the links is important. Text needs to be written simply. This is not a simple task, but it benefits everybody. And you can check the reading level score. Images need to be described, and text images need to be edited where possible, or at least think about your plan B for that image then. Media needs to be considered because we're creating a lot more media, and this is probably going to be the format of choice for the future. So while we're starting to create a lot of this content, we can at least get it right into production. And all of the documents as well. They are still online content. They're digital, and therefore the user's experience is still the same. And any of the barriers that might affect them with online content will still affect them with reading an online a digital document. And just start making it a habit, because it is really easy to implement, and it's just a matter of telling people why. Just because it's popular, like everyone's using those read more links, doesn't make it right. And people just haven't realized how it's affecting a lot of users as well. And yes, if any questions?
Okay, Kristen, we've got quite a few questions. So here's your chance. Pop your question in the control panel that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to fire away some questions to Anthony and Kim.
Okay, let's see some of these questions. So here's a good one for Kim. There's someone here that's asking, can you convince a client that the read more, click here issue, how can you convince a client that this is not a good idea? Or they say, oh, but isn't this used everywhere? Very valid question.
We would like to remind people about this thing called the early 1990s, where animated GIFs were also very popular. So no, sometimes it's just a matter of showing people not necessarily what not to do, but providing them with the alternatives, which are easy to move sideways to. So, for instance, getting people to write short descriptions of the link, or getting the title to be links as well. One of the best ways to show that is to get a screenshot, for instance, of what a screen reader's list of links would look like, and asking someone to try to pick a word click. It's all it says is click here. Same thing, by the way, for any of the things where it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't say anything. It's actually page 1 or page 2 or page 3.
Here, the elcomCMS is level A or AA compliant out of the box. So currently the elcomCMS is level A compliant and about 80% AA compliant, and we plan to be AA compliant by December 2012. The NTS calls for level A compliance December 2012 and AA 2013, yes. No?
2014.
14. So 2014 AA. So we'll be AA well in advance of the NTS. But we are certainly well on the road to AA, out of the box AA. I think that word out of the box is probably is an important word, because certainly the system can be made AA post implementation, as we have done for customers. But out of the box adds a different set of challenges, because there are a lot of human factors involved as well. So it's ensuring compliance around those. So yeah, thanks for that question, Ariba.
Okay, Michael, you just asked what about the load more link, so whether it's in the same bucket as the read more experience. load more, such as applications like Twitter, actually means something, and that just means load more of the results that I'm already looking at. So that's the case where it's actually okay to use, unless you have different, load more of A versus load more of B. That's where you kind of need to then split them out. But in a lot of cases where it's loading more of the results, people know what is getting loaded, so that should be all right.
The old more than one H1?
Yes, the H1.
That's a
yes.
good one.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. We know that HTML5 doesn't discriminate against H1s. So this is where we're still trying to figure out, as I mentioned earlier, what does it actually mean for the user. The techniques specify certain things, but how wedded we are to the techniques from a user experience is sort of different from what you actually need to get to do for the National Transition Strategy level of compliance. So it's a bit of a non-answer on my part, but I personally don't have an issue against multiple H1s, but you might get caught out by an accessibility checker, that's all. So, but it might not have implications yet because technology is moving.
I think Rajesh asked a question earlier, which I answered to him directly about when Anthony was demoing the system, whether the actual system was slow. It's actually the connection. GoToWebinar is very laggy, as you would have seen early in the presentation.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. So apologies if there was a bit of latency and a bit of slowness in the screen refreshes, but certainly it was very snappy on our side. So yeah, that's just something which we're at the mercy of the internet.
And we're glad you like the WCAG map. Yay! Okay, that was the compliment.
It is a cool map. You guys have done a great job with that
guys
map.
at Stanford. And
okay.
Is there any other questions? You know where to contact us. And
okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to send us an email or keep posting them in the question, and we can answer them offline. So what's next? Contact us to arrange an obligation-free meeting, particularly those who are in the 48% still researching, still learning phase. We can sit down with you and work out what you need, and discuss your requirements, discuss your current challenges, and work with you on your next steps from a strategy point of view and a technology point of view. I'll just skip to the next slide. You can contact us using the contact details that you can see on screen. So as Kim was saying earlier, we're friendly. So if any questions you have, just feel free to ask us. We can present to your team if you need to convince your team about the benefits of. I know that maybe you're really passionate, but you need to convince your team about the benefits of implementing this sort of strategy. We can help you. Thank you very much for joining us. Sorry that we've run a little bit late. As you can tell, we're really enthusiastic about this particular subject. I'll be sending through the presentation slides and recording after this event.
And transcripts. Yeah.
And transcripts. Thank you, Kim, for popping in and putting together such a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Anthony, for showcasing a fantastic piece of technology to help users, and thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon and spending your lunch time with us. Thank you and have a good afternoon.
Bye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.